Well, that's a very sad thing to come back to. Um, take him. Oh no. Sorry to hear that. Hmm. Yeah. Hmm. Actually, I was gonna ask since it's Mattress's birthday, if Mattress had any videos he'd like for us to put up first. It's okay. I'll try and find something quickly. Okay. Well, mm, yeah. Mm-hmm. Okie day. Gimme a second.
On the 20th.
Ooh. Speed running video, huh? Should be interesting. Ta-da. Yeah, they did do good with their law, didn't they? Mm-hmm.
After all,
Almost got everything switched over. Almost.
Of November 2022, the Celeste World record had finally been broken in a legendary 25 minutes and 59 seconds, which marks a hallmark moment in the game's history as the first ever sub 26. With over 30,000 runs on speedrun.com over 5 years, the world record has been continuously honed down by masters of their craft, with some wondering how these runs are even possible. Leading up to this point, runner Isaac Tay had been grinding upwards of 2 years, for the longest time as a completely unknown speedrunner, and only recently had he achieved a time like this. And with the help of the man himself, I'm going to dive into exactly what made all of this possible. Now this run comes sprinting right out of the gate, as even in the tutorial, players have routed out everything down to the millisecond. To make his way through the prologue, Isaac will perform short hops across the floor, which gives a small but worthwhile bit of momentum. And with the nature of speedrunning, every millisecond counts. He'll do this all the way up until the cutscene, where after lining himself up with the edge of the house, he'll immediately skip the cutscene. So far, the game's provided 2 out of 3 of the game's core mechanics, jumping and climbing. And finally, to end the tutorial, they'll attain the game's signature ability, the dash. A mechanic that may seem simple at first glance, but upon further inspection is much more than meets the eye, and in the hands of speedrunners can completely break the game. Upon finishing this introduction, Isaac begins the first real level, the Forsaken City, and begins traversing the mountain the game takes place upon. Using all of his abilities in harmony, Isaac can fly through each and every room of the level, rarely taking the intended route. For example, in this room, where he'll perform a dash wall jump straight up to the top, and here, where he'll fly right over the main obstacle of the room to reach the exit immediately. One of the ways he amasses all of this speed is using one of the game's first key techniques, hyperdashing. This is a trick that allows runners to amass huge amounts of speed, and can be done by jumping up, dashing diagonally into the ground, and jumping again to propel yourself in any directions. There are all sorts of variants and evolutions of this trick, which over the run I'll go over. Across the following rooms, he hyperdashes his way to each exit to reach the final chamber, which he barely scrapes through using a corner boost. Ultimately ending this first level, he exits with a time of 1 minute and 27 seconds.
The first good city of the day.
An impressive split even for a runner of his caliber. Into the second level, Old Side, everything picks up right where it left off. He performs a couple of hyperdashes leading into a quick fall, where then he makes his way into a secret hole in the wall. Because of how frequently speedrunners reset these first few levels, they've been optimized more than any other portion of the game, with players repeating each movement over and over again, to the point where it's ingrained in their muscle memory. This means that despite practice tools, the further levels in a run will always become more and more unfamiliar as the game progresses, with the later levels considered somewhat of a deep water. Each level of this game features some kind of new mechanic, almost all of which having an interesting interaction in the speedrun. On the second level, this comes firstly in the form of the dream block, but more importantly in the speedrun, a second mechanic will also come up. This is the upcoming fight with Battlein, the main antagonist of Celeste who pretty much acts as your reflection. Upon encountering her, she'll chase you down through the rest of the level, and to do this, she'll copy your movements precisely. And while in a casual playthrough this might come as a relief, in a speedrun this isn't exactly the case, as she'll match every single movement tech at lightning pace to reach the runner. Fortunately, unlike the casual run, Isaac knows his exact route before even launching the game, ensuring his safety given his movement goes to plan. Overall, Isaac quotes this as one of the easier and more consistent parts of the run, mostly focused on perfecting clean, well-played movement. And through the level, he makes his way through with relative ease. But on the other side of this difficulty spectrum, there is one exception. A strategy known as the one and only Taz Awake. By far one of the game's most absurdly challenging techniques that barely even the top of the top runners go for, to the point that it's debated whether it's realistically possible in a human run. This trick requires performing an extremely precise set of movements, saving around 3 seconds over the last few rooms of the level. Isaac has always labelled himself a safer runner compared to his competition, trying to avoid any high level risks or frame greeting in favour of consistency. But even despite his recent switch to a riskier playstyle, he still stays clear of this technique. Next up in the run, he'll enter the Celestial Resort, a hotel run by Mr. Oshiro which is in the way of Isaac's path up the mountain. And in order to get into the hotel, he needs to grab this key up on this platform. Normally to reach this key, you're meant to complete a short platforming challenge winding around the room, but by abusing level transitions, he can reach it a second into the room. When you go through one room to another in Celeste, you'll reset your dash, but still remain at the same height you were entering the room, effectively letting you dash twice into the air with a single jump. This is used a few times throughout the speedrun, including all the way back in the Forsaken City, and in this case to grab the key early. Upon entering the hotel, he can breeze through the room in a matter of seconds, due to some unusual quirks in the dash mechanics, where because of the uneven ground, he can continuously stack up more and more speed without limit. This is known as an ultra dash, and is the next step up from a hyper dash. Now he's in the main section of the hotel, he'll begin accustoming himself to the main obstacle of the chapter, sludge. This comes in all sorts of variants, like regular sludge, sludge tendrils, and most interestingly in the speedrun, moving sludge. which alternates back and forth on a fixed path. This sparks one of the most important concepts in this run, which is cycles. Each of these moving obstacles operates on a so-called cycle, rotating or moving in a loop over and over again. In many pivotal points of the route, players need these moving obstacles to be in the perfect positions to perform certain tricks, and if you're even a few milliseconds too late, everything will be out of order, leading to a multiple second time loss waiting or an unfortunate death. Once he approaches the center of this level, Isaac will talk to Oshiro to uncover the main quest. To fix up the hotel, you need to activate 3 different buttons scattered all throughout the level, each taking a different path to reach. And given this is such a long level, especially this early in the game, I'll speed things up a bit to reach the next major trick. As always, Isaac scores a great cleanup in 1 minute and 19 seconds, and now he'll enter the elevator shaft. Through here, he'll make his way through a few short rooms, until he comes across this roadblock, where Mr. Oshiro has blocked off the main path with some sludge, and the only way around this is taking a long detour below, grabbing a key, heading all the way back up, and finally reaching the other side. And being a solid wall, this is more than obviously unskippable, right? Well, in all reasonable logic, yes. But in Celeste speedruns, no. All the way back in 2018, a user by the name of Demo Jameson discovered a tiny gap between all sludge hitboxes, and if you were to perform a pixel perfect dash while crouched, you could slide right through. Which is exactly what Isaac did in this run, to bypass the gap instantly and continue through the level. As he reached the rooftop, he ended the boss fight chase with Mr. Oshiro, quickly ultra dashing through each and every room and opening every gate along the way, until finally finishing the level with a time of 3:54.
Nice. Now that's a good result.
Bringing the total runtime up to 7 minutes and 7 seconds, where most casual players would still be on the tutorial. Now he was on the 4th chapter, Golden Ridge. While entering this chapter is normally a nice breather after the resort, this fact is not so true in speedrunning, as while short, this chapter is incredibly dense and features some of the most convoluted techniques in the game. Golden Ridge takes place in the sky, and because of this, everything opens up, and each room now has considerably more space to move around in, and thus more space to perform skips. For the first few rooms of the level, he uses a combination of advanced dash techniques to traverse land, water and air to reach the first cutscene, which he immediately skips. After this cutscene, the game introduces wind, a new mechanic found all over the level, which can either speed you up or slow you down. However, due to the absolute speed players can amass, wind has little impact on their strategy. Next, Isaac will make his way into the next subsection of the level, using this pixel perfect spike jump where he barely avoids the hitbox. And now the game has presented one of its most unique challenges yet, auto-scroller blocks. As you probably know, auto-scrollers are any level in a game where the game takes complete control of the camera, and you're forced to slowly follow along, with no control over how fast or slow you are. And as any speedrunner knows, this can be a nightmare of time loss. This ties back to Celeste, as while there technically aren't any auto-scrollers, these blocks operate at a fixed, slow rate, and are normally required to finish rooms. There are tons of situations with these all across the chapter, and most of them are easily skippable. These blocks could be skipped with another spike jump, this room with an ultra dash, and this with a reverse hyper. However, one particular room proved slightly harder than the others, and runners needed a solution. In this room, there's an auto-scroller block at the start, followed by a couple of obstacles over the course of the room's length. Upon first glance, finishing this level without the block should be seemingly impossible, as you would not only have to fit through this tiny gap which is clearly impossible, but then make your way up all the way to the exit. However, as always, Isaac had found a workaround. By performing a hyper dash at the end of this level, he can somehow scrape right past the very edge of these spikes, corner boost off the exact edge of this group of spikes, and perform another pixel perfect wall jump off these spikes to reach the exit. And here finally he enters the elevator to the Mirror Temple 9 minutes into the run, bringing himself 4 seconds ahead of where he was last chapter.
Oh wow.
The Mirror Temple is the 5th level of Celeste, and is made up of long winding paths to form a sort of maze-like theme. And if you've ever played the game casually, you'll know what I mean, as this level is infamous for how easy it is to get lost. After taking a bubble through the first few rooms, he performs a well-timed hyper dash to weave through a spike tunnel, skipping the intended route and saving around 10 seconds. One interesting thing about this level is that players don't exactly play it as normal. In fact, players don't even fully play it at all, as upon obtaining the cassette a minute into the level, Isaac quits right out to the menu to instead play the B-side. The way Celeste's level system works is that every level contains a standard version by the name of the A-side, which has been every level Isaac's played so far. Then, the game features a B and C side version of each level for extra challenges after you finish the game. However, the game technically doesn't specify which side you need to beat in order to progress through the game. And theoretically you could start the A side, unlock the B side, then play through that version of the level. In most cases, this obviously ends up being a time loss, as playing multiple levels isn't exactly efficient. But because the Mirror Temple A side is so incredibly long, swapping to the B side halfway through saves around 40 seconds at the top level. One consequence of being on the B side is that now everything is much harder. Even the skips like in this room here, where he enters the room for 2 frames, performs a pause buffer to stay beneath the platform he's supposed to be sent above, and falls right back down. Where upon his death, he respawns ahead in the level, where he's meant to reach much later. This works as because it should be impossible to re-enter from the room above, the game doesn't set a respawn point. And so after your death, the game will look for the next closest position, which happens to be at the exit. Next, he performs a wall boost off the side of some spikes, entering the next room which he can quickly make his way through using the bubbles. And just like in the A side, he can perform another well-timed hyperdash to weave through a spike tunnel, skipping the intended route and saving around 10 seconds. Onto the next room, he'll perform a spike staircase climb to reach the mirror at the top of the level. Continuing to go deeper and deeper, Isaac can perform a respawn boost off this corruptor to launch his way past all of the room's obstacles. And at last, he's reached the strangest part of this level, Theo. In the up and coming ending portion of the level, Isaac is tasked with escorting a crystal containing a fellow mountain climber. In casual runs, this is infamous for being one of the most painful parts of the game. But in this run, Isaac can use the crystal to his advantage, allowing him to perform all sorts of new tricks, like grab assisted ultras and remote button presses, which he uses in combination to make his way through each room. And after carrying Theo through the final challenge in a matter of seconds, he'd finished the level in barely over 2 minutes and 10 seconds. Not the unmatched time he'd seen earlier in his last world record, but still an incredible mirror temple nonetheless. Into chapter 6, Isaac begins the first sequence by flying between each feather in the most direct route possible, dashing right before each feather for a few seconds of time save. And upon reaching the lake, he immediately performs what's known as the lake skip. Normally in this room, you'd have to swim all the way over to the cavern, which you then lure back over to launch you up. But just like many of the previous obstacles in this game, these crystals have a few pixels missing from the hitbox, letting you wall bounce up to the top. Through here, you can continue using feathers to fly through each room, until beginning to stray from the main path. By stacking the momentum of both a hyper dash and the speed of a Kevin, he can fly right through this wall here, where he grabs his second cassette of the run and quits out to the menu, pulling off the exact same strategy he used in chapter 5, only far more difficult than before. One thing that's undisputed in Celeste speedrunning is that this level is undoubtedly the hardest level amongst all of the run. It contains some of the game's most incredibly precise strategies, including the return of demo dashing, bumper boosting, and worst of all, Isaac's personal nemesis, Reprieve Multi-Boost, a technique letting you jump up a Kevin twice to gain much more speed. Through the B-side, he makes his way through each sub-chapter of the level, with the use of Kevin hyperdashing and micro-optimizations like this skip, to slowly bring himself ahead of his last PB. Eventually, he reaches a long downwards falling segment, where he utilizes the quick fall feature of this game, alongside more and more hyperdashes, to bypass parts of each room. On the B side of this level, the majority of these screens are incredibly long, meaning any death can be an incredibly punishing setback to the run, and even a reset at the top level of the leaderboards. For the second half of the chapter, he's sent into a second boss fight with Battlein, having to bypass various obstacles to consistently get attacks in. During this fight, Battlein often launches various moving blocks at you to throw you off, but in some of the luckiest circumstances, Isaac can use the momentum of these blocks on top of a hyperdash to finish rooms much quicker. And right after this, he can just make it to the end of the level at 18 minutes and 2 seconds, over 10 seconds ahead of his PB. Now, Isaac is entering the final level of this run, and everything must go well. If you happen to be observant, you'll notice Madeline's hair has changed to the colour pink, which means she now has 2 dashes instead of 1, opening up the route to all sorts of interesting strategies, even more impressive than the previous. As the more complex the game becomes, developer error only increases, and so does the opportunity for exploitation, like this room here, where he can slide right under the intended path with no regard for the ground, even performing a mid-air super dash on top of these spikes, just barely avoiding the hitbox. And after reaching the checkpoint, he comes across the next key theme of this level. For this chapter, the game takes you back to the very bottom of the mountain, and slowly progresses you through the game in little remixes of each level, meaning it's one of the longest levels yet, and can be a deciding point of the run. And with the combination of this and the double dash, the way each of these levels are played is completely redefined. For example, in the Forsaken City, Isaac barely ever has to use the traffic platforms, as the weight can slow him down, and in the rare case he does use one, it's with some advanced dash strategy. Now he's back in the old site, where the movement has gotten even more broken. With the combination of the double dash and the dream blocks, it's safe to say that Isaac can pretty much fly at this point, and there's nothing that can stop him. And on top of this, he can now much more easily and effectively perform dream hypers, doing a mid-air hyperdash right after exiting a dream block to keep your speed up over and over again. Through the Celestial Resort, he blazed through as fast as he could, chaining together hypers and ultras all throughout the level. Everything was slowly coming together from every part of the run, from the constant super hyper and ultra dashes to the demo dash in the Celestial Resort, to even an auto-scroller skip that surpasses even the ones found in Chapter 4. In the Mirror Temple, he's able to reach the key much earlier than intended, with the use of level transition abuse, performing a wall bounce on the room below to reach just enough height to grab the key, in which he could continue through to the next few rooms. Like the real level, the Mirror Temple subsection of the summit was one of the longer ones, but fortunately, Isaac's strategies kept that time loss to a minimum. In the locked gate room, he skipped every single gate with the use of demo dashes to just make it through the gaps. As he reaches the true summit of the level 3,000 meters above the ground, 3 minutes of the run remains. Through each and every room, he maintains the pace he'd spent years perfecting down to the point. For upwards of 2 years now, he'd been grinding away at any percent. Much of that time is a completely unknown run, and now this was his shot at possibly the greatest speedrun yet. His Twitch chat was full of anticipation, and not a single mistake could be made. As he approaches the top of the mountain, the checkpoints begin counting down. 3, 2, 1. And now all that's left is the flag. The music went silent and his heart was beating. Two strawberries, 6 deaths, and a time of 25 minutes, 59 seconds, and 70 milliseconds. The world's first sub 26 after all these years since the last minute barrier. And as expected, the community was more impressed than ever. This one stands high above the competition. And while the future of this category is far from set in stone, the next world record is more than likely a long way off. But to who will achieve this and when this time will be, time will only tell. And finally, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I'd really appreciate a like and subscription if you're interested in supporting the channel. And as always, have a nice day.
All these years, I found a new body.
Wait, a repulsor?
No, it can't be.
It's time for revenge!
She killed Mom. We gotta destroy her.
This is Ranger business, okay?
Let us sort this out. Rita's creating a time portal.
I'll kill you before Zorda makes you Rangers!
We gotta make sure Rita doesn't hurt anybody else.
Attention Power Rangers! Get to your assigned stations now!
Once a ranger,
Always a ranger.
It's morphin' time!
Your move, Rangers.
You wanna fight? You found one!
You got this. Good luck. Now it's a reunion!
Messing with this place was a big mistake. Don't worry, you saved the world before.
Hey, that's my birthday. It comes out on my birthday? Why? What? That's my birthday. Yeah. It is. I guess so. Because that is definitely my birthday. It's always been my birthday ever since I was born. I've heard movement in the rest of the house. I'm going to go have a look and maybe I might be able to get something to eat, which might help me feel better. I will be right back. Sorry about this, guys. But I gotta feel better. I'm back. Gotta admit, it looks good. Looks alright, but yeah, I'm back. I found something to grab for the munchings and crunchings, and hopefully everything works out alright. Yeah. How'd you like my yellow dress?
Trato calícete por tu lago, tráeme la botella. Aquí no compramos trago. Mueve esa nalga hasta que la leche se me salga. Mueve.
But I don't want to learn about North Korea. I already know too much. And we still have Sonic Origins video to play. Bright colors. New Playboy. Okay, fine. I'll click on it.
It doesn't take much to get arrested in the Hermit Kingdom. All it takes is watching the wrong thing,
Oh yeah,
or
the
saying the wrong
infographic
thing,
shows. They're
or
pretty good.
smiling.
Actually. I like
Here are
that.
some more crazy, regular things that are illegal
I like
in
this
North Korea.
channel.
Have you ever been in one of those work meetings where the boss goes on and on and on? The next thing you know, you're dozing off until your boss slams his fist on the table.
I'm eating
In most
some canned
cases, that'll get
popcorn.
you dressing down in front of the entire staff. If you've done it before, it might get you fired. But in North Korea, falling asleep in a meeting while the country's boss, Kim Jong-un, is talking is a much more serious affair. It can carry the death penalty, and in 2015, an unfortunate defense minister was publicly executed with an anti-aircraft gun for dozing off. Respect for the
Wait,
Kim
what?
family is serious business in North Korea. It's a scenario no one wants to contemplate. What do you save in the event of a fire? That was the choice facing one unfortunate North Korean mom in 2020, and the first thing she did was save her children from the blaze. Unfortunately, that left her facing jail time, because every family is required to hang a portrait of North Korea's founder Kim Il-sung in their home, and allowing any harm to come to it is considered a crime. One would think a fire counts as special circumstances, but even failing to dust it properly can get you a visit from the police. And don't even think about talking about these weird rules to your friends on the internet.
Oh, no.
That's because the internet, as we know it, does not exist in North Korea. Access to unfettered online communication is strictly banned, as is any use of social media sites. The people of North Korea who have internet access are few and far between, and civilians only have access to a very limited number of sites under a closed system named Kwangmyong. Estimates vary, but it's no more than 5,500, compared to over 1 billion worldwide. Unauthorized use of the internet through Wi-Fi or private servers can result in imprisonment or even death. Of course, this doesn't necessarily apply to the highest reaches of North Korea's government, a common theme on this list. But at least you can go for a nice relaxing drive, right? Not so fast. Cars are scarce in North Korea for a number of reasons. The first of which being that the country is very poor. Very few people can afford a car, especially with the only way foreign cars getting into the country is being through smuggling. But even if someone has the money, getting the need for speed won't be easy. Government regulations only allow about 1 in 100 people to own a car, and those approved are only male government employees.
I'm not going to do anything about it,
drive at
because
all.
the last thing
Even
I
the
want
ones working
is
as the country's famous traffic officers. It's not the only rule that makes moving around the country difficult. Like all countries, North Korea has border controls. But in most countries, moving from state to state is easy. You don't need to fill up any paperwork to get approved to move from Pennsylvania to New Jersey. But in North Korea, everyone's whereabouts are strictly determined by their status and relationship with the government. This is especially significant in one area, living in the capital of Pyongyang. The bustling city is home to the country's elites, and anyone trying to live there unauthorized would be subject to strict punishment. Some of North Korea's strange laws might actually have some positives, at first glance at least. It probably hasn't been too long since you skipped an election. Maybe you thought both candidates were bums. Maybe the incumbent was going to win by 30 points and you just didn't see the point. Or maybe you were just too busy binging YouTube videos. In most countries, that's fine. But in North Korea, elections to choose party leaders are serious business, and anyone 18 or over is legally required to vote. The problem is North Korea is a one-party state and elections are virtually uncontested. But hey, at least you can boast about high voter turnout. And this isn't the only unexpected responsibility. School in North Korea is very different than most countries. Not only is there a heavy dose of government training, but supplies are lacking in the best of times. Of course, in other countries, kids have to bring their own supplies to school, things like pencils and pens, notebooks, and maybe a calculator for math class. But in North Korea, school kids could get in trouble if they don't bring their own desks or chairs to class. Not only would that not fit in their backpack, but it might be a financial hardship to many poor people in the country. And don't expect too many conventional luxuries to be readily available. So how many times a day do you use electricity without even thinking about it? It could be as simple as flipping on the light when you go to the bathroom.
Yeah, I'm glad I wasn't
this as a
on there
luxury,
as well.
but in North Korea, electricity is in short supply and is strictly rationed. As seen in a stunning viral photo of the Korean peninsula, it's so bad that North Korea cuts off the power every night once the day's business is done, plunging people's homes into darkness, and certain power-sapping devices like microwaves are completely illegal to own. Even expressing yourself isn't easy in North Korea. In most countries, getting a new haircut or a style is a traditional way of showing some harmless rebellion as a teenager. It's not a phase, Mom. I'm keeping my neon green mohawk. But rebellion comes with a much higher cost, and every choice you make can arouse the ire of the state. North Korea has a carefully curated list of official hairstyles, 18 for men and 15 for women, and any person who has an off-the-book style will be subject to interrogation and potential arrest for disloyalty. Men aren't supposed to keep their hair longer than 2 inches, and you bet the security guards have rulers. Changing up your hair color is also a no-go. And of course, trying to mimic Kim Jong-un's distinctive hairstyle will lead to severe punishment. This next one might not be Kim Jong-un's fault exactly. It can be stressful traveling in a foreign country, and sometimes you want a taste of familiarity. You head to the local convenience store, look for a cold, refreshing bottle of Coca-Cola, and come up empty. Why is the beloved beverage not available in North Korea? The primary responsibility falls on international sanctions that make it illegal to sell certain goods to North Korea, and Coca-Cola is considered a luxury good. While some high-end stores might sell a variant produced in China, you can bet only the elite are likely to get their hands on it. This next one seems like it's a problem for a country in poverty. In most countries, responsible family planning is seen as a virtue. Education about birth control is often taught in schools. Too much snickering from little boys who just learned some things and will never look at a banana the same way again. But in North Korea, all forms of birth control are banned. While hormonal birth control is rarer and many people in the poor country would have a hard time getting it, this even extends to condoms. That's created a small black market in the rubber business, as it's common for adult males to get a pack as a present if a friend can get a hold of it. Awkward. They seem to want you to have a lot of kids, but where are they gonna stay? It's one of the great rights of adulthood in most countries, getting your own place for the first time. While most people rent at first, there's a great sense of pride when you sign on the dotted line and buy your first house or condo. But in North Korea, no one owns their house, and there's only one landlord, the state. North Korea maintains the exclusive rights to all land and property within the country's borders, and most people's abode is chosen by the state. However, a black
I'm
market
so
in
happy
real
I'm not
estate in
there
recent
as well.
years has led to some laws being liberalized. Can't execute everyone with an aircraft gun, I guess. It's not the only way the government gets invasive. We live in a digital society, and it's bridged the gap. For most people, calling cousin Rudolph, who lives in Liechtenstein, is a simple task, although it might be invasive. But for those living in North Korea, getting word out or in can be more difficult. Very few people own cell phones, and those that do have their service heavily restricted and monitored by the government. One thing that's strictly banned: making phone calls outside of the country, including to neighboring countries like South Korea or China, where many people have relatives. Just because North Korea has neighbors doesn't mean they're not a world apart. If you ask most people what they think when they hear Korea right now, they'll probably talk about K-pop, especially if they're young. Bands like BTS have swept the globe, getting a massive number of adoring fans in countless countries, except one. Kim Jong-un has maintained his father's ban on Western media, and that includes popular music from their next-door neighbor. But don't worry, North Korean music lovers can attend concerts from his hand-picked bands. They typically mimic the fashion and style of the outside bands, but with a strong political bent. Well, at least you can probably watch TV, right? Not quite. While your hotel in the tourist sector might have a TV, don't expect to keep up on your favorite shows or watch some Wheel of Fortune. North Korea's TVs have 4 approved stations, all either showing government propaganda or approved entertainment from the country. The TVs run on a closed network, so don't even think about trying to pick up some unapproved channels. Being in possession of outside entertainment can be a capital crime in North Korea. And there's one device in particular you should not expect to find. Are you one of those tech jockeys who can't stand to be without your iPhone for too long? You probably shouldn't be planning a trip to North Korea. Not only is the use of outside devices restricted within the country, it's a double whammy for Apple lovers. The powerhouse tech company is prohibited from selling or supplying any of their expensive gadgets to North Korea due to the US sanctions against the Hermit Kingdom. So the only people with these devices are the leadership, who always seem to be able to smuggle them in somehow. It's not the only familiar sight you'll miss in North Korea. It's a common pastime of tourists. They miss home, so they seek out something new and familiar. Sure, the locals might sneer at the Americans eating McDonald's in the middle of Paris, but no one's stopping them. In North Korea, though, most Western chains are banned. Not only does Kim Jong-un not want Western influence in the country, but sanctions keep many businesses out. That means you won't be able to get that Big Mac attack cured in North Korea, nor will you be able to find your favorite frap at Starbucks. So what do North Koreans do for entertainment anyway? The answer is not much. When North Korea launched nuclear tests in 2017, countries around the world responded by tightening sanctions. North Korea's response was to make sure their public couldn't express any negative feelings about this downturn in their economy by instituting a ban on singing or drinking in public. The ban targeted public gatherings where people could get out of control and start letting their true feelings about the regime fly. Better to keep that behind closed doors, after all. It's not like the government should know what people think. It's not even easy to get the news in North Korea. In other countries, if you want to find out what happened on a certain day, you look up that paper at the library or on a website. But in North Korea, newspapers are treated more like state secrets. You can't go back into the archives, and you can't even buy one to take home. Like many North Korean policies, this might be due to the government wanting to maintain strict control of the flow of information and not to have anything exist to contradict them. So how do you read the newspaper in North Korea? They're put on display in subway stations and people gather around public boards to get a look. I wonder what North Korean Garfield will be up to in the comic pages. But not even the normal holidays we celebrate are the same in the Hermit Kingdom. North Korea is officially an atheist country with a ban on all religions and a state-sponsored mythology surrounding the Kim family. Owning religious paraphernalia is banned, but this even extends to some things that are considered secular by many people now. Most notably, don't even think about owning a Christmas tree. In fact, nothing related to the world-famous holiday is allowed in North Korea. So watch out, Rudolph. Stay in colder climates, Frosty. North Korea's got all you on their own personal naughty list. With rules like this, people must be heading for the exits, right? Not so fast. While in most countries, traveling abroad might be an easy affair, at least before 2020. If your passport was in order, you could just hop across the border to Cancun for some R&R and be back the next day. But getting out of North Korea for citizens is a much more arduous affair, bordering on impossible. It's illegal to immigrate from the Hermit Kingdom, and the line between North Korea and South Korea is a heavily guarded DMZ. So the most common way people escape is through the northern border shared with China. Few make it, many are killed, but those who do survive become an invaluable source of information for the rest of the world about the isolated kingdom. Meanwhile, some rules apply only to tourists. Like most countries, North Korea has its own currency, the North Korean won. Unlike many other currencies, it doesn't have much of a counterfeit problem because it's not allowed to be brought in or out of the country. It's only for internal use. And they take its secrecy seriously. So seriously that it might be the only currency in the world that tourists aren't allowed to use. Tourists have to use the currency of their home country, usually dollars, euros, or Chinese yuan, and don't even think of trying to get some won out of the country as a souvenir. So I guess you're stuck. Better make the best of it. How about a game of b-ball? Just make sure you know the rules, because basketball as you know it is illegal in North Korea. Kim Jong-un likes to separate himself from Western ways as much as possible, and he's even gone so far as to change the rules of the game in some bizarre ways. Not only do slam dunks now carry an extra bonus point, but the game speeds up massively at the end with shots going from 2 points to 8 points in the last 3 minutes of the game. And watch your aim. Teams lose a point if a player misses 3 shots in a row. It doesn't take much to stand out as an outsider in North Korea. Sometimes all it takes is getting the date of the year wrong. That's right, North Korea even has its own calendar. While much of the world goes by the standard Gregorian calendar and some cultures like China and Israel go by ancient traditions where the new year starts on a different date, North Korea uses the Juche calendar, one which starts at a unique point, April 15, 1912. That's the date Kim Il-sung, the founder of the Juche system, was born. So, if you're paying a visit to North Korea, it's probably best not to wish anyone a happy April Fool's Day. If there's one thing that defines North Korea, it's that they take their leadership seriously. One of the strictest rules in North Korea is that any sort of insult toward Kim Jong-un or the rest of the Kim clan is considered the highest of crimes. In the US, it's common to see people on Twitter openly insulting the president as he tries to lay out policy, and he used to insult back. But in North Korea, something as simple as calling the supreme leader fat can get you sent to a labor camp. And this applies whether you're a citizen or a guest. Attempted theft of an in-room poster was enough to get an American tourist arrested and sentenced to hard labor, where he later sustained fatal injuries in 2017. And it's not the only way patriotism is compelled. Universal national service isn't unusual in countries around the world. The United States drafted soldiers in multiple wars, and in countries like Israel and South Korea they have a universal draft. But few make it harder to get out of the draft than North Korea, and few demand more from their young soldiers. North Korean mandatory service applies to both men and women and ranges from 7 to 10 years. Most of these soldiers will wind up serving the government, but many might be sent to the harsh DMZ region where war is just one wrong move away. And it's not the only time your fate isn't in your hands. How do most people in other countries choose their profession? It's either after an exhaustive look at possible majors they want to learn about, or it's by scanning the wanted ads to find something that pays enough. But in either case, they make a choice. Not in North Korea, where the government will typically choose someone's profession for them based on their aptitude shown in school and where the government needs them, as well as their family stature. For those who object to their assignment, there's usually another one waiting for them: forced labor. For women in North Korea, things can be especially dicey. It's taken for granted by women in most countries, although purchasing them can be awkward when dad or the boyfriend gets sent instead. But not only will sanitary products for that time of the month be available, but there'll likely be a wide selection of them in comforting pastel colors. However, if a tourist is expecting to need sanitary products while in North Korea, she should take a healthy supply and hope security lets her keep them. These products are not available in North Korea, mostly due to a lack of supplies for disposable products, and most women use washable sanitary pads instead. It's not the only case where women have fewer options in North Korea. Reproductive freedom is strictly curtailed in North Korea, as the contraband condoms probably made clear. But it goes further than that. Due to Kim Jong-un's obsession with the women of North Korea producing more socialist soldiers, abortion is totally banned in North Korea. But the restrictions don't end there. Women are required to give birth alone and are kept from meeting their husband for a week after birth. And it's common for children to be taken by the state for training and adoption if the mother is deemed to be undesirable or the children are multiples. Like most things in North Korea, children are often considered to be the collective property of the state. And don't expect flowers either, Mom. Mother's Day is a popular holiday all around the world. At first, it seems like one brief dose of normalcy in North Korea. The holiday was introduced in 2012 and became popular with the public, and that couldn't stand. First, the government decided it should honor all mothers, including the metaphysical mother of the Workers' Party, which they commonly call the Mother Party. The holiday became increasingly focused on celebrating the party instead of Mom, and now is prohibited to send personal messages to your mother that day when you could be celebrating the deceased members of the Kim family instead. Sometimes things get weird on one specific day of the week. Sunday Fun Day, right? Not so much in North Korea. While the weekend might be sacred for many workers in the rest of the world, things are very different in the Hermit Kingdom. While the day is officially a day off from standard jobs, it's also known as a collective labor day. That means workers are often assigned to complete large-scale jobs like paving sidewalks and cleaning up trash. Making this worse, all cleaning must be done without the use of tools. And don't even think about calling in sick. The boss has a pretty strict attendance policy. But one day probably holds the biggest risk for people. Don't smile. Don't even think about it. Does thinking about it make you want to smile? Imagine if for one day a year smiling was considered a crime against the state. That's the law in North Korea every 8th of July, the anniversary of Kim Il-sung's death. Both the birthday and death day of the Juche founder are seen as holy days in North Korea, and any sense of frivolity in the latter is seen as a sign of a lack of mourning. It's prohibited to smile in public or even talk too loudly, and the police have their eyes open for anyone who doesn't seem to be mourning the departed leader sincerely enough. But one banned item in North Korea made national news in 2021. It was the Korean TV show seen around the world, Squid Game. Influenced by classics like Battle Royale, the South Korean drama became a sensation for its tense plot, which saw ordinary citizens competing in a series of twisted life-or-death games for a chance at a fortune. Not only did people love seeing classic children's games turned into death traps when it streamed worldwide on Netflix, but many people praised its incisive look at the failings of South Korea's capitalist economy and how it leaves many of its poorer citizens behind. Anti-capitalist satire? North Korea probably loves the show. The bent of the show, condemning South Korea's secular capitalist culture as decadent and harmful to the poor, might have met with Kim Jong-un's approval. After all, it's pretty common for the leadership of the country to get a hold of Western media and luxury goods through smuggling. But for the general public, it's a different story, and the country is under a tighter lockdown than ever when it comes to foreign media. In 2020, the country passed the Elimination of Reactionary Thought and Culture Act, which banned the importation of foreign media, and that includes South Korean dramas. A few people found that out the hard way. According to Radio Free Asia, a late 2021 attempt to bring Squid Game to North Korea ended in tragedy when authorities found high school students watching the show. The source of the leak was traced to a smuggler who managed to bring in hard drives from China. He was sentenced to death by firing squad. The student who bought the flash drive was given a sentence of life imprisonment, and 5 other students who simply watched the show were sent to a labor camp for 5 years. But that doesn't mean the Hermit Kingdom has no use for the show. A propaganda site described Squid Game as depicting the sad reality of a beastly South Korean society. So they're in favor of the message, just don't think about trying to watch it. Want to know more about this strange country? Watch what it is really like living in North Korea.
I'd rather not. Thank you.
Absolute legends. Games Done Quick is the biggest speedrunning event in the world. A week-long marathon where speedrunners from all over the world come together in celebration of the hobby and to demonstrate the amazing strategies their communities have developed over the years. A wide spectrum of games, from the most popular today to games you've never heard of, are speedrun while commentators explain what's happening and provide expert insight. While at its core, Games Done Quick is an exhibition of speedrunning, its mission is to raise money for charity, which it does very well, raising millions each year for numerous causes. For the first 10 years of its life, Games Done Quick was a strictly in-person event. Gamers had to physically go to the event in order to run their game. However, after the beginning of the pandemic, Games Done Quick would switch their event to completely online. This meant that a runner could now perform their speedrun at home, and it would be streamed to the Games Done Quick channel. Thankfully, this really didn't diminish the event in any big way. The viewers continued to watch, and the money was still being raised at an amazing rate. But it did open the door for something more sinister. In the past, players would speedrun their game directly in front of GDQ staff and other speedrunners, making it essentially impossible to cheat. When someone plays from home, the story is different. No one is there to verify what's happening, and a player could in theory stream anything to the main channel, like perhaps a pre-recorded video. Luckily, this didn't seem to be an issue, at least until now. On the 30th of June, the speedrunner Mecharazium, who was playing remotely from Russia, streamed a previously recorded, spliced fake speedrun and pretended to play. And it wasn't just a standard run-of-the-mill speedrun you would expect at a live marathon. It was a new world record. This is crazy and truly bizarre for many reasons, which we will discuss in the video, not least of which is the fact that he did this at a charity event. But what's even crazier is what happened after he cheated, and it will blow your mind. In today's video, we will take a look at what went down, and I'm really interested in hearing your thoughts about what happened in the aftermath. I really hope you enjoy.
Better than nothing.
Now, legends, I'm very excited to announce this video's sponsor, Geology.
What you got?
I have an embarrassing confession to make. I am extremely lazy when it comes to washing my face, and my wife always complains that my face looks and feels oily and dirty. So the lesson I learned is that if you don't take care of your face, people notice. That's why you should be using Geology. Geology is a 9-time award-winning men's skincare company with over 5,000 5-star reviews. All you have to do is take a quick 30-second quiz outlining your goals, and Geology will provide. Games Done Quick is a speedrunning marathon, and marathons are a vastly different environment than what speedrunners typically have to deal with. Generally, speedrunning is about getting, quote-unquote, the run. Runners will spend hundreds or thousands of hours, weeks, months, and even years doing the same thing over and over again trying to beat their personal best, or maybe, if they are lucky, the world record. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter if they fail any particular run because they can simply start over and try again. But in a marathon setting, players only get a single chance, performing what runners call a no-reset run. This means they aren't allowed to restart if something goes wrong. They must play from start to finish in a single attempt. This increases the pressure dramatically and causes a problem that a lot of runners experience, which is to stress too much over getting a good run. Of course, it's natural to want to perform well, but the reality is that if you only have one opportunity, the run is probably going to be a lot worse than your best. There is a reason runners can spend years trying to get a world record. They are incredibly difficult. In any specific run, many things can and do go wrong, including simply getting bad luck from the game, which is out of your control. This is why many runners will change their strategies to better suit a marathon environment. They will use less risky strategies, and they may also choose techniques that are a bit easier to perform, even if they are a bit slower. It has to be said, though, that many runners worry far too much about performing well. If you are performing at a charity event and your biggest concern is how fast your run is, I think you're probably missing the point. At the end of the day, it should be about having a good time, showing some cool tricks and techniques that your community has found, and being grateful that you can take part in an event that is doing a lot of good for the community. No one in their right mind expects a runner at a marathon to perform an amazing speedrun. It just goes against everything people understand about the hobby, which is that fast runs take a lot of effort and a lot of time to achieve. And when you do have speedrunners thinking that their run needs to be amazing, you ultimately get what happened at Summer Games Done Quick this year, a player faking a world record. The runner Mecharazium, or Mecha for short, was scheduled to speedrun Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, and this run went exactly as you'd predict it would. It wasn't amazing, but it wasn't terrible. It was 3 minutes slower than the world record, but in a run of that length, being just short of an hour, it's really nothing to complain about. It was the textbook kind of run you would see at every marathon. And the reason this speedrun is what you would expect is because it was legitimate. He was actually playing. Mecha wasn't happy though, and just listen to how he talks immediately afterwards.
Do we have 57:45.
57:45, still underestimate, boyo. Good job.
Yes.
Good job.
I don't think this run's good. Well, I mean, look, I've choked. Yes, I played badly. Sorry. I could have done better. But, I mean, I haven't slept. I'm sleep deprived for quite a while.
Despite the commentators giving him props for the run, he apologizes for quote-unquote playing badly, and makes excuses for why the run wasn't good. It is obvious that he cares far too much about how impressive his run should have been. And as I talked about before, this type of unrealistic and misguided thinking about marathon runs is a problem, and it led directly to what happened next. Even though Mecha's original scheduled run was legit, he wasn't finished playing yet. As part of the efforts to raise money, Games Done Quick also gives donation incentives for extra challenges. In this case, they put up an incentive for Mecha to play the Metal Gear Rising Revengeance DLC, Blade Wolf. In order to be successful, viewers would need to donate $25,000 for him to speedrun the DLC. and of course, the goal was met. The Blade Wolf DLC is not a long speedrun by any means, coming in well below 10 minutes, which makes Mecha's decision even stranger. He had just finished a 1-hour speedrun, but Mecha didn't really want to play for another 7 minutes or so. Even though viewers and supporters had raised $25,000, Mecha had a different idea. Over a month earlier, he had crafted a spliced run of the DLC. He had tried certain sections of the speedrun over and over until he did them very well, and then stitched them together with video editing software. The world record for a speedrun of this DLC stood at 7 minutes and 20 seconds. The run that Mecha had crafted was 6 minutes and 57 seconds, beating the current world record substantially. Instead of actually playing, Mecha would stream the video of his pre-recorded spliced run and pretend he was playing.
That's
Knowing what we know now about this run, it's really hard to watch. Mecha really tries to sell the fact that he's actually playing the game. He pretends that things almost go wrong, knowing full well they won't.
No. Perfect. And we're going to touch the panel without... Do not kill me, I'm going to smother you if you do. Let's go.
He even talks himself up about how good he is playing, calling himself a god gamer.
And every single attack of Kamsin will kill us. I'm not using any safety strategies because I am a god gamer.
At the end, he asks what the final time is and pretends to act shocked that it's a world record.
Time. Can you tell me the time?
Looks like a 6:55.
Holy shit. Kind of like a world record. Yes.
Now, I have to say, it's one thing to splice a speedrun and upload it to YouTube or a rankings page, it's something else entirely to get in front of tens of thousands of people live and to lie to them by pretending to speedrun a game. I think it takes an extra special level of psychopathy to do something like that. In my many years of experience, this kind of thing is extremely rare, and I've always found it to be much more bizarre than merely uploading a fake run to a rankings. The act of physically pretending to play is just crazy to me, and I don't understand how someone could do it. Afterwards, Mecha went on a very discombobulated rant that I really can't understand, even on repeat viewings.
Can you please use the term I feel empty and deranged. Denied one last epiphany and ushered from the stage. We won't be meeting again, I think. Some people just want to see this world burn. Good night. There will be more godless nights.
Mecha's entire performance, even during his legitimate speedrun, did seem weird to me, but that's not really surprising. I think you'd have to be a bit weird in the first place to do what he did. No one immediately noticed or even considered the possibility that he wasn't playing, but there were some pretty obvious signs that something wasn't quite right during the run. For example, during his real speedrun, you can clearly hear him using his keyboard and mouse, but during his DLC run, his keyboard was completely silent.
Chapter. But before we kick it over to donations, just to prime you for what's ahead, we have to walk through that entire...
each of the parry is extremely important to us, and every single attack of Kamsin will kill us.
He even took his hand off the mouse at one point, and in order to recover from this, claimed that he had used his opposite hand to move it during this brief moment.
It's actually pretty hard to get past this grab because he has an eyes on his, like... on his head, and obviously moving the mouse with my left hand was a different experience.
Several days after the run, Mecha reached out to GDQ admin and advised them that the run was a pre-recorded segmented run. He claimed that he changed his mind at the last second after switching saves. He noted some oddities about the run and appeared to apologize. However, as we will soon see, excluding the highlighted oddities about the run, essentially everything in this message is a complete lie, including the apology. Originally, people thought that Mecha came clean by choice, but that's not really what happened. The day after his run, it had already been confirmed that the run was spliced by the moderator, Dark Slayer, who realized that a checkpoint message that is supposed to appear was absent. This would only happen if it wasn't the first time playing through that section, indicating that it was a pre-recorded spliced run. So Mecha was basically forced to confess, or he would have been exposed by others. After his confession, GDQ banned Mecha from any future events and removed his run from their YouTube channel. They also made a public statement saying, "He contacted our staff with a document detailing that he had planned this for over a month, demonstrating this was planned and intentional. This is absolutely unacceptable and attempts to undermine the integrity of the speedrunning community that we love and support. We have removed Mecharazium's runs from our YouTube archive and will not permit him to run in the future." So after scamming donors out of $25,000 and pretending to play a fake speedrun at a charity event and the most beloved speedrunning marathon in the world, you would think that Mecha would be banned from the speedrunning community and people would go about their business.
What, he wasn't?
But that's not what happened. Remember when Mecha said multiple times that he wouldn't submit the run to the leaderboards? Well, that was a lie, because several days later, that's exactly what he did, and surprisingly, the run was accepted. Your immediate reaction would be to ask, how the hell is that possible? And it's due to a technicality. You see, while Mecha did pretend to play a regular speedrun, technically the video he made was a segmented speedrun, which is where speedrunners splice together multiple sections after repeatedly trying them. So instead of submitting the run to the regular leaderboard, he submitted the run as a segmented speedrun instead. And because the moderator believed it technically doesn't break the rules for a segmented speedrun, it was approved. It gets a little bit worse though. When you submit a speedrun to speedrun.com, you need to link a video of the speedrun. Now, obviously Mecha has the original video that he made. You know, the one he used to fake the speedrun at GDQ. But Mecha didn't use that video to prove his speedrun. No, he used footage from Games Done Quick, where he was pretending to play. This, in my mind, proves that Mecha is not sorry at all for what he did. If you had guilt about what you did, or felt any remorse or shame, why would you use the footage of you doing said thing, instead of just using the original footage? You wouldn't. The reality is that Mecha is proud of what he did, and he wanted to show it off. He wanted to promote his deception, and use it as a trophy by displaying it on speedrun.com. And if you think I'm looking too deep into this, I haven't yet mentioned that Mecha has on multiple occasions since defended his actions. On Reddit, he claimed that people weren't thinking outside of the box enough, and weren't connecting the dots. And yes, at this point he was still claiming that he wasn't going to submit the run to the leaderboards. What's more shocking to me though, is that a moderator allowed this to happen, essentially endorsing Mecha's actions. By allowing this particular run onto the ranks, you are in effect condoning what happened. When I found out, I couldn't believe it. I needed to find out what was going on, so a good friend of mine, Apache Smash, got me in touch with one of the Metal Gear Rising Revengeance moderators, Valeria, and to her credit, she was extremely nice and open. When I asked her why the run was on the ranks, she said that she had only just found out herself. So this was obviously not a reflection of all of the moderators, and was likely a decision made by one person. Now, I want to stress heavily that even though I'm about to levy some criticism at the moderation team, absolutely no one should ever harass or even contact any of the moderation team at all in regards to this situation. If you do have an opinion, you can leave a comment under this video, and the moderators can choose whether or not they want to read them. I was very appreciative of the fact that Valeria was willing to speak with me, and as she didn't make the decision herself, I asked her to approach the moderation team to make sure they were all on board with the decision. I asked her to provide the moderation team with 3 things to consider, and I made it clear to her, as I make it clear now, that I don't speak from authority and I don't speedrun the game, so I really don't feel entitled and think my opinion is worth more than anyone else's. But this is my opinion, and I asked her to bring it to the team. I asked them to consider removing the run from the ranks. If they weren't willing to do that, I asked them to consider removing the footage from Games Done Quick, as that was extremely disrespectful. And failing that, I asked them to at least make a public statement condemning Mecha's actions, as from an outside perspective, it appeared as though they approve of what he did. The moderation team refused to do all 3. Make of that
He
what you
did do the
will.
dirty.
If you look at the speedrun today, you will notice the video has changed and is now the original footage. This isn't because Mecha or the moderation team decided to change it, it only happened because Games Done Quick found out and had to step in and take down the video. The video linked showing the original run was uploaded in May, confirming that Mecha had been planning this for at least a month in advance. I simply have no idea how a speedrunner can scam donors out of $25,000, cheat during a charity marathon, make a joke out of the entire thing, and not only face no consequences, but have that very same speedrun approved on the official leaderboards. My mind is blown, and I genuinely feel sorry for other speedrunners of that game who hate what Mecha did and don't want to be associated with it. What's interesting though is that Mecha was actually banned from the community for the rest of the Metal Gear games, but the one particular game in which he cheated is the one game in which he faced no consequences, which I think is just a reflection of that one community and is not indicative of the speedrunning community as a whole. I'm pretty sure that most other communities would have banned him outright, or at the very least, not approved that particular run. I am very curious to hear what your opinions are on this, so please let me and everyone else know what you think in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, you legends. I hope you are having a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next video.
If I was in that community, I would be so fucking angry that I'd want to rip the shit out of him. And I mean, damn. That's horrendous. I don't know how he sleeps at night. But sadly, the popcorn did not help with my tummy, and I am still not feeling very good. Let's try for one more video and see how I'm doing. I'm thinking about maybe I should end the stream here because I'm really not feeling very well. Leave it at a relatively short one. Is that okay with you guys? Because if so, matters who are we rating today? Because I'm really not feeling good. But yeah, if I was in that speedrunning community, I would be so pissed off. But yeah. I'm still not feeling very good. So we should raid. Let's see who's on. We have Sky is on at the moment. Camilla is on. VTuber Queen, Sleepy Puff. Clem is on. Any thoughts? Questions? Comments? No? Okay, well, I'm gonna get a red message going. Even if everyone is just lurking. PYRUSSY because I'm sassy. I'm sassy. VTuber Pyra Z. Copy. Okay, here's the red message. I'm sorry I'm not feeling so well, so I'm cutting the stream short, but it's probably for the best. Let's give Sky a bit of a raid, shall we? But yeah, you guys are awesome. Happy birthday again, Matters. Hopefully I'm feeling better tomorrow and stuff. I love you so. I'm Pyra Z, your little fireflower. Now let's raid, motherfuckers. Let's raid.
Org.
Oh, 5v3.
Oh, that one's not bad.